Hello and welcome to another episode of Darkness in Dublin. We lay our scene in the coffee shop of St Patrick's Cathedral in the heart of Dublin City Centre, where two mages who attend this cathedral regularly have started talking about their beliefs, whilst another is due to arrive. So it's good to see you well, Daniela. How have you been?
Well, things have just kind of, ever since what happened with the Templars, things have been a lot more settled. No more uprooting events every week or so.
Yes, well, we've all had a good few years of peace.
Well, at least
people got together and arranged a ceasefire with our opponents.
That's good. I've noticed that you've been, I've noticed you've been kind of having like a stern expression on your face lately at Mass. You alright?
Physically, I'm fine. Yes, thank you. I've had a lot on my mind. We had some disturbing events tied to history, old and long history.
History's always a mess when it starts to come up. History always these days seems like like pimples and blackheads.
Are you particularly acquainted with Irish mythology?
I've been getting into it ever since I've been here for the past few years, so I know basic concepts, but it doesn't seem like there's an overall clear. Well, it's a lot more open since not everything's clearly defined, from what I know. Since there are a lot of gaps, people can take creative liberties.
Yes, and the habit of not writing their stories down means I'm sure they change the telling. That's right. I think they appreciate that as a part of its charm.
Yeah, it's ripe for storytelling. I've created my own tales based off just by what I see on the other side, seeing how the various souls interact with each other. I remember seeing a strange little fairy digging through dust in the streets, trying to find clear materials and sending them off to, I don't know, decorate different trees in the forests. I found a lot of them doing
that. Michelle, do come over and join us. I don't think you two have.
Okay, Michelle is all of 4 foot 11 inches tall.
Oh damn!
Yeah,
Danielle's like almost a foot taller than you.
she's wearing I guess jeans and a t-shirt.
Right. If you look at Daniela, she has like a single, backpack next to her by her feet. She wears like baggy, kind of a baggy set of pants, winter pants, and her signature kind of black with some cobalt blue lining, hoodie with jacket with a hood on it, and that has all sorts of interesting kind of what's the term, holographic kind of symbolic designs on the back of it.
Neat. Let me try to find a picture here real quick. Yes, this will work.
So Michelle is a colleague of mine from the university, and Daniela, has been an acquaintance on and off for a few years now.
Well, cool.
So when we were, well, the last time we were properly together, things were a little hectic, as I recall.
Yeah, everything was going crazy. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a beam of faith. Recollect?
Mm. I believe that would be accurate. Yes.
Yeah, you didn't think anything like that would be possible.
No, I still don't.
But
I still don't fully understand how that is possible. I do not think that faith is a matter that can be manipulated in that way.
well, she'll kind of look to Michelle. By the way, she'll kind of put her fist out for a fist bump. Name's
She bumps.
Danielle. Good to meet you.
Michelle, nice to meet you.
Like, does she bump the fist?
She did. She bumps the fist.
Cool. All right, cool. So
Am I coming through clear?
She seems to nod with respect at that. Wait, what did Michelle say?
I was asking if I'm coming through clear on the mic.
Yeah, you're a little bit quiet, at least on my end, but I can turn you up.
Okay.
So yes, that was a dreadful business, but well, at least it finished well.
Well, to give your answer, I mean, faith and isn't kind of mental energy. Theoretically, since anything can be changed, it's actually not that ridiculous of an idea. Although it's probably very difficult.
Are we talking about faith or about the soul being a thing?
Well, are we getting into metaphysical debates now?
Well, I mean, it's certainly possible for a person to lose their faith. I mean, and it is possible for their faith to be removed by removing the person. But quite what appeared to be being done, I just do not fully grasp.
Well, faith is like a collective of ideas and emotions that coalesce into a quality of energy. Maybe let's say that their faith was lost, but more that their emotions and ideas transformed into something else. And then perhaps it can transform once again into a different form of faith with different ideas. Nothing's ever really static, right? That's what...
It seems to me that faith has a quality to it which is different to simply ideas. Faith is a connection to a higher power, and God chooses to limit himself, so awaits our permission to act upon the world. That by doing so preserves our free will. Thus, faith is that bit of belief that gives God permission to act.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I guess you could think of it as if you tie yourself to faith, you create that faith in your mind. You tie yourself sympathetically to the God that you're speaking of. That's one way to look at it.
Are you familiar with the origins of the word religion?
To bind, right?
Yes. Religio. Same word which is regulate.
Well, at least I guess the universe could use some regulation. Although nothing too stifling. What do you think about what are you like on your own, or are you part of a tradition, Michelle?
Hermetic.
Hermetic.
Hmm?
Surrounded by two hermetics now. You guys always seem to have an interesting. At least if the corpus hermeticum is to be believed, you guys seem to be all about self perfection, thinking the world is alive and all that. Or does it vary? Or is the corpus wrong? And there's a more accurate version out there.
I would not say it was entirely wrong, but all individuals vary. We all have our own traditions and lineages. We all have different, as I said, lineages. And yeah, those that have very different views on the world. And very different ideas on what self-perfection means.
That's true. It's
Shall
almost
not.
as though, almost like the idea of our idea of perfection is not exactly perfect.
Well, that in itself is an interesting term. I guess perfection would vary from person to person.
Yeah, I guess it does. I wonder if sometimes someone's searching for something they don't call perfection, but that's what it is. How close are you guys on your paths to perfection,
Well,
would you say?
Not as close as I'd like to be.
I do not think. I don't think that all men seek self-perfection. Many people take choice in their lives which are manifestly unhealthy. They poison their bodies with cigarettes, with drugs, with other substances. They do things which make them less perfect, not more.
Well, it depends on the drug, but yeah, it definitely.
You could argue in some cases, but certainly there are people who do things which are manifestly harmful to them,
For
which
sure.
manifestly make them weaker, sicker.
Human psychology is a strange thing.
Mm.
I remember there was this idea that sometimes you have to kind of degrade yourself a little bit before you can become something more. Or sometimes you never get out of that and you end up killing yourself.
You are right. I mean, the church has had elements of self-flagellation, of mortifying the body to purify the spirit, because bodies have been seen as sinful.
It depends on, and again, it's always that word,
But,
depends.
but then the church has been through many phases in its long history, and it's not something the modern church generally goes in for.
And then again, the church is a very diverse thing. It's kind of weird to call it a church when you think about it.
Well,
Right?
it is, and that's merely the Catholic Church.
Exactly. Kind of shows her forehead, so. How long have you been in Dublin, Michelle?
About 2 years.
It's about the same as me then. Why'd you decide to come here?
Is there anybody around?
You're cool.
Berries. Research. I grew up around Salem and Boston and fell into the little lore with that stuff and got myself curious and wandered over here.
So almost on a little bit on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. What'd you think of the place?
I like it. It's definitely different, but it was peaceful for a while.
Yeah, then things kind of definitely grew unstable the past, from since 2 years ago. Maybe it was just brewing under the surface, and Eventually, all the baggage has to come out.
Yes, I think that the hectic pace of life that a couple of years ago that was due to say certain malevolent forces influencing both sides. As I said, once
And
that
don't forget about
once that was revealed to them, they rather agreed to cease fast so they could clean their own house.
yeah. Wonder why that keeps happening. Things corrupting from within seems to be the common trend.
Because of human nature, because men are fallible, because power corrupts. But then, is this not also true of history? All great nations fall from within. Rome
Yeah.
was sacked by barbarians because it grew corrupt and weak on the inside.
What do you think one should do to stop that from happening to one's own self? You have any experience with that?
Someone asked me recently whether I would rather succeed or be right. He later rephrased it to succeed or be correct. I think many of these problems are caused because too many people would rather succeed. And let their moral compass wander if that's what it takes to succeed.
So,
That was rather rather what happened to poor old Yuki.
I heard about that.
I heard the gist of it.
So, as far as I can tell, she acted with the best of intentions. Um, but she did things which simple common sense said are wrong, bad, because she wanted to succeed.
They say hell's laid, the path to hell's laid with good intentions.
That quote was used, in fact, at the time.
Yeah.
In
It
the
makes you wonder where the road paved with bad intentions leads. Maybe there's just a train track, two tracks leading to the same place.
and does that mean the answer is to stop following the beaten track of the roads, to find your own path?
Probably just to not just have those intentions, but to think about them a lot before you end up going through with any of it.
I also think this is where the Templars may have got awry. That they okay, if they stopped and weighed up what was being said and what was being done against their moral compass, they would have realised where they had strayed. They weren't bad
Right.
people. They just again they put succeeding in their task ahead of their sense of right.
The thing is, I think the inherent problem was they thought they were right. What happens when your sense of rightness is skewed? What if both trying to be thinking it's better to be right than thinking it's better to succeed? What if those are both faulty paths?
Mm.
That's the
They may
whole
have
thing with being human.
they may have thought they were. Some of them may have told themselves they were right, but I think deep down they must have known that what they were doing was not. I mean,
Well, I
it
mean,
was
most
so
fanatic.
manifestly wrong. I mean, it's also difficult because I'm sure many of the foot soldiers were simply following the orders of their superiors and trusting in them. And their superiors, as you said, yes, they as you say, they at some level they thought what they were doing was right because they were following orders from a higher power, but they didn't stop and apply their critical judgment and their own conception of what that higher power would want.
Well, I mean, would you call them fanatics?
They were acting as fanatics in that incident. Um, but then I, I've had to ask myself what I would have done in that situation. If a if a higher messenger of the one appears and tells you to do something,
Is it
it's
wrong to ask hard questions to one of those messengers in your
man,
eyes?
no, it's absolutely not wrong, but it is difficult.
Maybe the simplest thing would have been to do is to ask some really hard questions of what that thing asks of you, and to always be on the wary whether that thing claims to be what it says it is.
Mm. Oh, as far as we can tell, it was exactly what it said it was. It was just giving some slightly vague instructions that could easily be misconstrued, and it
But
knew what it
shouldn't
was
have been,
doing.
but shouldn't have that been a sign that maybe wasn't that in and of itself a telling sign? Something might not have
Yes,
been right.
yes, it should have been. Um, but then I know if Uriel came down and told us to slay all the firstborn,
I would ask why and what makes you. There are many beings out there. What makes you Oriel? It would probably offend said spirit, but I'd rather be sure that they are who they say they are, and they act who they say they are, than to follow the orders of something that's trying to manipulate me. At the end of the day, you have your gut, and you have your thoughts. You really, in those situations, sometimes have to, at least in my experience, really dwell on your own experience.
Mhm.
Think about what's being asked of you, and really think hard whether that's the way to go.
Mm.
Sometimes you have to have that bravery to say no.
Yes, and they did at the end.
What did happen at the end?
Dances around. Um,
I mean, we got most of the prisoners out. I wasn't there for the final culmination of things.
um, I'm happy to talk about it. Perhaps we should, well, finish our coffee and move to somewhere so as not to disturb anyone with our loud conversation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, I assume we'll relocate to somewhere private. I don't know. Um,
Uh,
the Thanatos Mage Bar, or
I mean, that's not. That was my AST place.
or
I'm not an
or,
AST
or,
anymore,
or we
so I
could find
can't.
a we could do. Oh, it's not far to a reception room at the Chantry, I'm sure. Um,
I mean, she'll take you. How about this? There's this place by a riverside that's like really quiet and like no one really hangs
fine.
out there.
Okay. So okay, we'll pick up a coffee or tea to go on the way, and settle down by the riverside. Hopefully, it's not too cold. Where were we? Yes. So, Michelle, I'm not sure how. Yeah, you have heard just the story already, but
I'm happy to hear it again.
Daniela was with me for the first part, but not the conclusion. So, when we ventured into the, I know their final. Well, I believe it was actually a monastery from Italy. We later learned that they'd shifted into the spirit lands, which itself is quite an impressive feat. And we faced their chief inquisitor, who I'd met once before, and with him was a body they'd been creating out of all the essences, all the faith, and the quintessence, and the spirits, and whatever else they harvested, and a being who identified as Raphael. So I exchanged words with the Inquisitor. He initially, I believe, he rebuked me along the lines of he would not be lectured to by a layman. That was after Raphael gave a vague instruction to the Inquisitor to deal with us. You see what I mean by vague instructions. I challenged him as to explain what he'd done and what was the name of this creation. And at that point, he turned and realized he didn't know and questioned Raphael. And I believe it was that moment that the entity known as Faust appeared. Raphael refused to take part. By his own words, he had skirted the rules. I think it was he would not actually directly break them by intervening. Various people fought Faust, who was able to appear in more than one place at once and call down he encountered something about calling down a Holocaust and filled the room with fire.
Yikes.
Various people were attempted to destroy the body. It was protected by a shield they started to batter against. I tried to engage Faust in conversation to keep him occupied, and he spouted various heresies, as you would expect. Combat ensued, and I think they were just about to destroy the vessel. I beg pardon. Faust had a cup in his hands that held the true name, which he'd reclaimed from the unborn child of Yuki, which he intended to implant into the vessel. This was the true name. Oh, you may have been around, Daniela. Were you in the city when they redeemed one of the fallen?
I've heard about that, but no, I wasn't there.
When that happened, apparently that allowed Faust to steal this name from the Book of Names.
That's right, I remember that.
The true name of the first fallen, possibly someone's love. I'm not quite sure.
I think they were able to steal the name of the second coming.
Okay, no, I believe I'd have heard that suggested. I believe it wasn't actually the second coming as such. This was the name of the first angel to follow Lucifer, the first of the fallen, the possibly called Lion, and when it fell, it was stripped of its celestial body and cast into the abyss. So this was not just a ploy to bring it out the abyss, but to give it a celestial body again. essentially rise it to the original rank of a true archangel.
Holy crap.
So combat ensued. Then the entity identified as Lucy appeared. I don't know if you've ever heard about this entity.
Yeah, I was there when he appeared in the bishop's room.
In the bishop's office.
Yeah.
I've heard about that incident. Yes. So Lucy appeared and said some things. And froze the situation for a decision to be made. And pointed out there was one other option to change the series of events, and people looked very confused when he pointed out that I was the only one who could do it, and they then started what would be the term, egging me on to use that hermetic magic that I boast about. Not that I ever recall particularly boasting about it to them, but
I mean, that's the reputation everyone has of you guys.
well,
I'm not saying it's true. That's just
I don't particularly recall boasting about it.
She
But
just kind
anyway,
of looks at Michelle and just shrugs.
but anyway, it was then explained to them that we weren't actually talking about hermetic magic. So I proposed that we I asked them to join me in prayer, and that got a, shall we say, a mixed response. And prayed for God to intercede, as did others in their own way, some of them. And Faust was cast down. So the vessel, however, then awoke. I don't mean awaken, awoke. It did not appear to know who it was or what it was. Carly introduced herself. It asked, "Am I a Carly?" So I think that shows its level of understanding. I then said, "I think the name you are looking for is Hope," which later proved to be correct. It confirmed that was its name.
Huh.
I'm not.
What was it?
It's
because the vessel wasn't implanted with the first fallen, right? If I'm following the story correctly.
I gather it was invested with a human soul. This would be Lucifer potentially acting as a psychopomp.
So wait, a human soul is now within the body of a celestial, like a new. Not sorry, she wouldn't say new. She'd say of a celestial vessel.
Fits my understanding. Yes.
She just kind of has her eyes widen and kind of, head back. Holy shit, that's crazy.
She initially stayed with Carly. I know she spent a while with the Celestial Chorus. They attempted to ascertain exactly what she was and what she is capable of. They were not able to find a limit. I think they stopped the tests for concern of that reality might be exceeded.
Well, is it an angel?
I don't know. How do you want to define it? What an angel is?
Well, is its body? Does it seem of, I guess, the holy faith that you talked about, and had
She
an ephemeral, like, was the body of ephemera,
she
or was
has
it physical?
she has a physical body.
Huh.
She needed to be reminded to breathe. So
Uh.
it's not, should we say, a normal physical body.
Okay.
Where is she now?
Yeah, that's a
Where?
good question.
As I said, for while she was with Carly, then she was with the various people of the Celestial Chorus. She's now currently with me.
Oh.
I'm one of the few people who, well, I was present when she awoke. I'm one of the few people that's still around here, and I suppose I was inspired to reveal her name.
So I guess that makes you the
Adopted father.
Papa Rupert.
Papa Rupert, yeah. That's
You
a
can
good way to
imagine
think about it.
I've grown quite attached after 2 years now.
So how are they developing? Is it a girl?
Oh, it's
boy?
it's a physically, maybe she looks like a young woman.
Huh.
Yeah, she didn't want to live at the Chantry. I thought that might be for the best in case anything happens to me, but
Is she as attached?
I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Does it seem like she's that attached?
I don't have a baseline. I'm sorry. This was all quite new to me. I haven't had the privilege of raising a child before.
Do you remember we discussed the other day about you being the one to volunteer to do something?
Yes.
I think you should reconsider that, considering your situation. I was unaware of that at the time.
Everyone's got family.
Yeah, but yours is a little different in this regard.
If anything happens to me, I've told her to go to the Chantry, and I'm sure Dinofri would make arrangements.
She just looks at him.
And frankly, something could happen to me regardless of what I choose to do or not do.
Mm.
We later discovered that the soul she carries was previously the soul in Yuki's unborn child.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. I think. Yes.
Yes, the biggest question is: do they seem to be cool with the situation? Are they okay?
Who?
Hope.
She seems. Yes, she does not have, shall we say, I'm doing what I can to make her have a happy and meaningful life. She does not seem to have a particularly strong will, as in, if I ask her, would you like to come to this place with me for the evening? She would probably do what I decide. She is not assertive enough to make the decision for herself. I'm told some children are like this, are they not?
I suppose.
Yeah, I would think so.
I suppose you might think that would be typical for someone who's experienced a great trauma.
There's that, but it seems like they haven't been born yet, or the soul hasn't.
Well, she's also got some bits of 1,300 odd other souls inside her.
Oh,
Oh, just that. Okay.
I'm not entirely
Okay.
sure exactly what level of knowledge and memory she has.
How did you come to the number 1300?
She mentioned it.
Oh,
That's not the exact number, but well, I believe we saw some of those people. So this is the reason why I've not taken an apprentice.
huh? Well, that makes sense. Better to focus on one thing than too many. Do you think as she grows up, is she capable of awakening?
I I don't know. She she currently doesn't strike me as someone who has the right temperament. As I say, she cannot. I say if she evades making a decision for herself, that is not a good predisposition to awakening. Not to say it's impossible,
Shows
but
it's not my place to say.
I'm not sure she really need. She really has a need to.
I guess I was just curious.
Um,
It's not for everybody.
well, she's not. Well, you could debate whether she's actually human. She has a clearly she does not have a normal human body in quite the same way. She's not of the human family line.
how,
Well,
she
you
doing the
know,
breathing thing? Well, is that still?
Rupert looks very comfortable. Um,
I don't think he's. I don't know. Does she know about the birds and the bee? This is getting.
I wait. I said breathing.
oh,
I thought
Yeah.
you
um,
said like Danielle's. Oh, I thought you said breeding.
No, but I mean, since we're there,
she yeah, she had to be reminded about breathing, but I think she's mastered it now. Um, I mean, there's some questions there of how old do you think she should be considered to be?
you said she looks like a young woman,
Yes,
younger than me, older than me.
maybe 16 when we first encountered her. Again, I'm not entirely sure how her aging process is going to work, if at all.
What does she do while you're out?
Well, um, I mean, she's free to come and go as she wants to, if she wants to. I try to make sure she's got material to read. I'm doing my best to homeschool her. In
If you
fairness,
ever want help,
I've got some experience too from teaching at the Chantry. So, um, yeah, I'm trying to encourage her to say learn about the world, learn about people. Um, I I don't know what I'm open to suggestions.
I mean, I can get some books together if you want to have some reading material.
Yes,
Reading material. Sorry, like Danielle tends to zone out sometimes. She kind of comes
okay.
back to us. Sorry, what?
We're discussing I think an education plan for Hope.
Um,
Uh, well, there's online has a lot of materials. I know a good couple of free archives that I could send you, Rupert, if you're
Oh,
the
well,
computer
thank you.
type.
I mean, yeah, I need to make sure it's more about planning what to present and in what order. You know, I don't want her to read something and take it out of context or get confused or.
well, where do you want to start? Do you know?
Oh. maybe start with what immediately surrounds her. You know, start with what's present around her. You know, the room, the things in the room, where they came from, and slowly expand from there. Kind of like an expanding sphere of knowledge. So it slowly expands based off of what's around her, and then eventually she'll have broader questions, and maybe eventually you can lead her to where she wants to learn.
So,
Has she expressed interest in certain things at all?
as I said, she's not one to assert herself in that way. I mean, she's not. She's not a complete blank slate. Essentially, I mean, when she woke, she had language. She's not a newborn, but she has complete ignorance of some topics. She had to be taught about the expectation that she would dress herself before leaving her room.
Just imagining him.
So she's not. She basically needs. I mean, need is, I guess, subjective in this circumstance, but it seems like she. It's not that her will is low. It's just that it's like a child that needs to grow.
Mm. I have been struck by like a comparison. Is she what we were before the fall? Is she as Adam and Eve?
That's a good point.
Hold on.
That's a good point too.
Of course, because she's not of the house of Adam. She's not stained by original sin. She's not. That is that literally what she is?
I mean, maybe, or she's just someone who think like this. There's an episode I watched on Star Trek recently. That's this idea that the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere don't always talk to each other, but maybe she's the kind of person who has her mind is just one mind. She just kind of sees and experiences things, and that's enough. Her mind is fully present in the moment.
She's also got the 1,300 things going on.
There's that too.
I'm not sure. I don't think those are active consciousnesses.
Oh, good.
They may not be active, but that's still.
I mean, I think she may have memories from those souls. I don't know if that's complete memories or fragments of memories.
Well, remember, imagine what happens when she goes to sleep.
Well,
she probably has some pretty intense dreams.
If she dreams at all.
Well, do you know mine?
I don't know. Do angels dream?
It's a good. You can check.
I could try. I don't know if that would work.
It's worth a shot.
Yes.
Because knowing that she dreams might give you an idea of, or at least if you can see what, at least not directly into the dreams, but if you can see that she's dreaming and what's at least an impression of what's going on, at least it can give you a way to relate to her. Understand what it is like being her. So at least you have a conception of it.
You have a good point. I have mostly been trying to approach this more or less as a mundane father. And as a man of faith. I mean, maybe I should be approached this more as a magus.
Well, I think you can. I mean, you're separating the father from the magus, right? That'd be thinking dualistically. The father and the magus are the same thing, which is you. You do what you think, feel, and judge worthy to take care of her, as long as it's within her well-being, right? Truly within her well-being, and she kind of winks at that.
Well, I had that as a choice I had to make already. There was an incident at Halloween which I'm simplifying the story, but Raphael appeared again, called by someone, and offered to place certain limitations on hope. Um, as you may be aware, celestial beings have certain rules, things they're not allowed to do, like casually interfere in the affairs of mortals. And of course, Hope is an interesting special case. So there was some discussion as to whether she should come under the same rules.
Wouldn't that be up to her?
Well,
And again, I'm
potentially.
not really familiar with if she even has a concept of individuality, or if she does conceptualize it, but just in a more holistic way.
She has a sense of her own name. Um, I think she has an ego, perhaps a weak one.
Or at least one that's been more integrated with, like I said,
Well,
there is an ego, but it's
I,
just so
I,
connected with everything else.
I see no indication she has any kind of shadow. I sincerely hope she doesn't have one.
Well, then maybe the best way to say just, a conscious, the self, to stay away from you.
Mm.
That
So
I
you might
within her.
want to actually discuss the other thing we mentioned that I didn't actually mention with her. How does she interact with other people?
well, as I said, as someone who's learning basic social skills, she's been fine to attend. Say she attended the Halloween ball of Master Siren.
Wait, there was a Halloween ball?
This is something Master Siren does at Halloween. He calls up the spirits of the departed.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't
Not
know
a practice
that.
I generally approve of, to be honest with you.
Well, as long as he's not forcing them to come.
I'm on the fence with that one. Is she as impressionable? Like, does she do what she's told with other people, or is that just with you?
I believe she cooperated with the test the Celestial Chorus wanted to do. She has, I believe, displayed certain powers for them. Her powers are miraculous, not magical.
I'm just a little concerned about her dealing with other people and being talked into, whatever.
Yes, I've done what I can to teach her. And I am happy there are some people she's no longer around.
Okay, well, I'll get some books together for her, and if you ever want me to say hi or something.
You're welcome to drop by and meet her. So,
Have you given her a chance to read the Bible? Out of curiosity.
Yes. Yeah, I've suggested she read all the major, learn about all the major religions, given what she is, and yes, I've suggested she read both the Torah and the Testaments.
Maybe also a good idea would be to maybe an exercise, not just to show her these other religious books, but maybe, based off what might give you an idea of how she thinks or how a way to relate to her is maybe ask her to come up with a story of how she thinks the world began. It's made to be, and get an idea of what her own kind of intrinsic, cosmology is. Might give you more insight about her. and what she thinks. I mean, stories are the way. I'm not sure if she's human, but she wants to at least get an idea of humanity. One big part of us is stories, narratives.
Talking it over and thinking about it with you, this. I wonder, is her lack of will, is that something intrinsic in the nature of Celestials?
Or is she just young?
No, no, the thing, no. Well, no, there are clearly at least some cases where Celestials have exercised their will. There's the huge most obvious case, for
Yeah.
starters. Um,
And from what I can tell just by looking in certain parts of the Umbra, there's all sorts of at least things that I can describe and look like as if they were, celestials and did things.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure there are other spirits who take on that shape, or maybe believe they are. But I mean, the true Celestials.
Yeah, I haven't seen those.
Well, I'm sure Raphael will turn up sooner or later. Well, actually, yeah. Arguably, you have met one.
I don't. Well, technically, yeah. Well, two, but they weren't exactly in their nice states.
Not to mention, did you ever see Faust around?
I did when Faust first made some kind of threat or forewarning with Yuki and came into the Tuftani bar. That's when I first saw Faust.
Yes. So they're no longer a celestial, but still.
Yeah.
So, just to complete the story. So, after after the battle, the monastery we were in was returned to its position in Italy. Um, the I believe various people that died in the battle were brought back in a gratuitous display of power by the seat of crime, who was then undone by Paradox. And the bishop later replaced him.
Holy crap.
The Templars the Savarian Templars were taken into custody by the chorus. They had their own trial. I requested to attend. They wouldn't let me, which I must confess I was a little perturbed to not be allowed to at least witness some of the proceedings. But they exonerated them. Apparently, they regard that sincerely believing that you're fulfilling the will of the one is a defense for the chorus. So the chief inquisitor, who was briefly Archbishop of Dublin when the bishop was replaced, he is still around. I gather he's still active. He's actually of the chorus himself. I believe he's in. Last I heard, he's in South America. So I haven't seen him recently, but he is still alive and with us. And the Templars are once again a craft, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think I heard down the grapevine from some of my other craft buddies that they were back in. There were some faces were made.
I'm sure some may have claimed it was a rogue faction, but still, I don't know.
I don't really hang out with my own. I haven't really met much of the craft aside from Gravedigger.
Who's craft again?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm just an orphan, as they call it. So independent. Just some mage.
Do you feel drawn to any particular craft or tradition?
I mean, I've definitely, the chorus were the first tradition that I kind of met up with, but, and I'm starting. They're starting to grow on me. However, she kind of nodded, said, "I still have a feeling that there's stuff that I need to work out for myself, and none of the other traditions or crafts really get where I'm thinking."
There are some where it's possible to join as a social member or a legal member without necessarily adopting all of their particular beliefs.
I don't know. There's an advantage to kind of being an outsider to everybody.
Um,
You get to kind of be, you get to hear
I'm
from
sure there
everyone
are.
without them assuming.
I'm sure there's also disadvantages.
Well, there's tons. I mean, being on your own definitely is challenging, but I don't know. I get this. It's not. I really try to not make it an ego thing at all.
Mm.
It's just it's really rewarding in a way because I have help. I'm with a cabal, but
I can tell you have a cabal at the moment.
yeah,
I'm not sure. I know some people have said I've had the cabals fade away, one way or another.
we'll see. I mean, so far I'm sticking together. Honestly, when you at the end of the day, even though traditions help and for organization and structure, family seems to be the most important thing.
Yes, family is very important. Um,
Building that home and sanctuary. Right?
mm. But then, right then, we tend to think of our mental lineages as family, not our rather than families of blood. I
That's
still,
so.
I still called it off for your mother.
Sorry.
You know, Joffrey.
Oh, D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
Well, she's interested in that. Our first meeting wasn't amazing, but
Oh,
she's
sorry
all
to
right.
hear that.
But she seems focused,
Mm.
willful.
More traditional for our lineage. Well, she's now head of the chantry. So
Is she?
again, it's not something I think she particularly aspired to. So, what drew you to the chorus? Do you have a
Well,
particular place?
when I first was lost and woke up, it was I ran through an alleyway, and there it was, the cathedral.
Oh,
Went inside, and that's when I met the archbishop and one of his priests. They, were willing to take me in right away, but I felt I had some soul searching to do. They respected that. And ever since then, since everything that's been going on seemed to involve the chorus, getting to know Rabbi Shmuel and saving those captive prisoners of the chorus, I felt for the struggle. I felt for I could kind of get around this idea of trying to give everyone common ground. A way of thinking that one day maybe we could all agree upon, not out of force, but out of free-willed faith.
yeah.
Seem noble. Have you guys had much, dealings with the chorus? What's your guys' perspective on them?
I've never got to deal with them.
I think I've talked about my dealings with them. Um,
Oh,
well, the stories we've already been saying. I didn't. I was on some terms with Archbishop. I didn't know him that well. No, I have a lot of respect for the course. I can imagine. If my way of life would be different, maybe I would have ended up in a different place.
you like the Order of Hermes? She kind of says that to both of you.
Yeah.
They've made me who I am. So yes, I have a lot. Yes, I have a lot of respect for the order. I think it does a lot of good work in the world. But at the same time, I would say that, wouldn't I? Because they've invested a lot of time and effort in me to get me to where I am. I was rescued as a child and taken in.
Guess no wonder you feel like family to them. Or they feel like family to you.
Yes. The only family I ever really known, I suppose. And yes, like all families, we have our disagreements and our fights at times. But at the end of the day, we're still family. But I mean, I've had this debate recently with, so we say, people have different opinions. People who try and demand that the order justify itself or justify its existence. But then, I know, you could say the same of any tradition or any culture.
Any group of humans.
To my mind, the order does well. No, actually, let me use the example. You remember Stephanos, the Greek fellow?
She nods. Yeah, Stephanus was cool.
He
Bit
was
high strung, but cool.
he awoke. He was, well, I suppose briefly an orphan. He was deciding who to join. He was considering the order. He was considering the children of knowledge. I think probably some others as well. What made him make that decision that he did was there was that, I don't know if you were there. There was a brief altercation with the Inquisitor, the one with the eye patch and the German.
I may have been.
Stephanos sent a slightly ambiguous message to D'Onofrio saying that there was a problem and that someone was in danger. D'Onofrio very, very quickly later appeared, fireball in hand, ready to come to our defense. For Stephanos, that convinced him to join the order because he wanted to join a group that would come to their members' defense. Now, I'm not saying that's typical of every hermetic. That's possibly a reflection of D'Onofrio, but that's what made him make that decision to join. But
fair.
I mean, the order does have. It has the possibly the most rigorous structured training program. It has some of its facilities. Yeah. Yes, you're right that many of the other traditions, seem to have issues with us, possibly old history. I wonder if some of it is a a class conflict, really. That many of us in the order, we tend to have careers, professions, we tend to be degrees, we tend to be middle class. Contrast with, say, some traditions where many of their members don't seem to have a proper job or a proper vocation or the same level of education.
Seems that stuff never even grips the awakened, or even folks. Sorry, I should rephrase that. It seems that kind of stuff still doesn't escape the even the awakened.
Yes. I mean, I might as well suggest that what makes the order different to the other traditions, and probably the crafts as well, is individual exceptions that noted that the other traditions use magic. We're the only tradition that really actually tries to formulate theory and understand how it works and why it works and manipulate it to deeper theoretical level. You could argue
That's what I've been trying to do.
You could argue that the technocracy also tried to do that.
I mean, hey.
To which my retort would be that puts us at the balance point between the mystics who simply use and the technocrats with the merely cold understanding.
So you're kind of I guess you guys are kind of like Hermes in that regards then. One foot in one side of the world and the other. And the other.
Oh.
The bridge.
Do you remember what the date was when we fought the Templars?
She thinks September 10th?
Close. It was the 13th. I wouldn't expect you to remember. It was 2 years ago after all.
Yeah. It was close.
Do you I take you from that chuckle, Michelle. You noticed the significance.
Mm-hmm. We discussed it last time.
What's the significance?
It's when they were wiped out
by the King of France in the 14th century. On the on the 13th day of the month, the leaders of the Knights Templar were burnt by the King of France
on a Friday
for trumped up charges. That's why the masses still think Friday the 13th is unlucky.
Huh.
It's a surviving mythic thread, literally from the mythic age. The consensus of masses still believes that Friday the 13th is unlucky because a particular historical event happened then.
Interesting.
And it was only fitting that we fought and ended the Templar menace on the 13th day of the month. I have not noticed the irony that I ended up burning one of them on the 13th day of the month.
She just kind of puts her hands over fists like, oh, man, I don't know what to say. She just kind of makes a gesture in her hands of a circle going round and round.
But that has become rather my go-to example of seeking to theorize magic, seeking to see the conceptual depths beyond it, to know to learn the significance of numbers and signs and sigils. And there we are, the power of the number 13.
That's why I mentioned that in regards to the other issue that's been going on with the 13.
Yes. An interesting observation there. I would be surprised if that's connected, but
hope it's not.
It may well be the 13th has other occult significations. I'm sorry to be obtuse, Daniela. You probably saw the news about the fire at the university that destroyed one of their buildings. There were 13 casualties found inside.
Seems like 13's popping up. Yikes.
But I'm not. I can't see any connection to the Templars there, so I assume that's some other meaning. Um, how else? Someone's look into it. So, I'll say I hope that gives you a wider account of the story. As I said, since you were part of it, it's only fair you know how it all ended. And well, I say ended, it's still ongoing. The what sprang from it is still with us.
Crazy to think that so much could happen in just a short span of a time. And how that can change so much.
Oh, that reminds me though. We touched earlier. Is there a difference between the spirits and the true celestials? Um, there is a power that celestial beings seem to possess. I'm not aware of this. I don't think spirits do, but devils do as well. Um, if you mention their name in conversation, they are aware and hear it. Just to make you aware for full disclosure.
They will make you say that one more time. I didn't quite catch your drift.
If you mention the name of a celestial in a conversation, they will be aware of that and they will hear the conversation.
Oh,
Huh.
Speak the devil's name and all that.
Yeah. She just kind of shakes, scratches the back of her head and kind of looks.
So,
Shame that a lot of the things that give people reprieve, such as, superstitious ideas, not being a thing and that they don't have to worry about it. It's a shame that they, in fact, do have to think about it if they want to see how things truly are.
mm,
If what you say is true, but honestly, a lot of things ever since delving into, I guess, the quintessential energy. She kind of taps her foot.
well, I have strong reason to believe that that part's true after Hope has displayed that power.
All right, so it's not like I wasn't believing you, but um, yeah, it's just I don't know. That was the one main advantage of a lot of that, at least of science, was the reprieve of kind of thinking for a little while that you could be free of supernatural forces. And yet, they were right there.
Well, perhaps constructing them all in one lump supernatural is not helpful. Um,
It's going to be a hard ask, trying to have science and superstition together.
but I mean, the Tedocracy, they have understandings of things that a normal scientist would call the supernatural. I mean, I remember the horrors of the engines of the Leviathan, where they were feeding what they call ephemera into the engine. Now, if you were to walk into the science faculty of that university, you were to start talking about an engine powered by spirits.
No.
That would sound like superstition.
I guess the superstition in the sense of not necessarily, you can conceptualize it in scientific means like some sort of extra dimensional energy that can be funneled through a specifically made ordered device. I guess I'm more talking about, if you see the number 13, bad luck's coming your way, or, if a black cat crosses the street on the wrong side, it's a bad day for you. Or,
Well,
certain numbers signify certain things. It's that kind of thing that I think
Yes.
I think at least my generation enjoyed not having to worry about.
Well, and that raises questions then. Let's just take the number 13 as unlucky. Now,
Mhm.
is that just the way the universe is constructed? Is it that way because the current generation of masses believe it? Is it the case because masses have believed for generations and that carries a weight, even if the current
Yeah,
generation do not, that there is inertia behind it? Is it simply that one particular historical event has caused these echoes across reality, across time, that have fundamentally changed what the number 13 means? Um, is it something else?
could be all those things together.
Um, I I personally think it goes beyond the one historical event. There are, I mean, the number 13, I think, can be argued that there are traditions that have been unlucky before that date. For example, you may have heard of the expression 13 at the table is unlucky,
I think so.
which references Christ and the 12 disciples at the Last Supper. And
Ah,
see, one too many. Um, so it, I think it's well established that 13 is unlucky. Again, it does not say whether it's truly is that in the was that defined at the moment of creation. That's the way the number 13 works, or was it has that crept in at some later point, and has it something happened that made it unlucky, maybe in the dawn of time, and then it becomes unlucky. More bad things have happened, and more bad things have happened, and it's like a snowball rolling down a hill through time. It's gathered more and more weight. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean,
It sounds like the former makes sense. Like,
and there's other things that certain numbers that seem to reoccur. I mean, were there not? Um, I mean, there's the 12, number 12, for example, the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 apostles. Um, I'm sure there are other examples. Um, and whether or not, how many U.S. states were there when they declared independence? At 12?
I don't remember. Think
How many states voted for it, or when it,
how many states there were in the original founding. I think he's asking.
Yes.
13?
Huh.
Well, what does that say about the way the world's going?
Well, things starting to go downhill in the corporate
Um,
world. It seems, and during 2013.
and okay, I won't delve into the history now, but to Michelle, you can also think about just how many houses were there in our order at the founding.
Um, let's see if I'm 12.
Possibly depends exactly how you count it, but yes.
Yeah.
Again, the number 12, it seems to reoccur a lot. Um, so okay, then the next step in this is to attempt to draw correspondences. So, for example, we could take our 12 founders and we could take the 12 signs of the zodiac or the 12 apostles and try to see which one appears to correspond to its opposite number in the other set. And is it possible to gain insight that way?
I mean, perhaps if you focus correctly, perhaps. if you wanted to correspond them between the two, because the number 12 is related to them, I can allow you to access that space. But I guess you'd have to see how relatable those two events are with that number, or by some other correspondence. That could be a way to measure it.
But again, these are simply, yeah. This I think is a hermetic way of looking at things, of trying to work with theory and correspondences and signs, and see the connections and figure them out and use them to enact change. And you said you read the corpus hermeticum, that which is above is as that which is below. That's If you can see the symbols, you can affect one by affecting the other. You can By manipulating the lesser, you can manipulate the greater. As I said, I think that's what makes us different to the other traditions. That we try to think at this a deeper conceptual level.
Right. Sounds like a good way to Hey, someone's got to do that job.
Well, rather than the Verbena who does what her grandmother taught her, because it works for her grandmother, so it works for her.
Come again? What?
Well, the other traditions use the magic they've been taught in the same way, but they don't see the deeper conceptual level.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe each awakened experiences this, and she kind of emphasizes her whole body and being, and says, this. I don't know how anyone else feels about this. What it's like for them, but
I do recognise individuals can be exceptions to the rule.
But what I mean is that it seems that the very nature of, at least for me, how being awakened feels, and I mean feel as in touch, not feel as in emotions. I don't know, there's something about it that always, at least for me, always has you ask deeper questions. Maybe some don't get that deep reflection just through symbols and mathematics. Maybe some just feel it within the words of their grandma, and that's how they learn. I don't know.
But I mean, we talked a lot of hermetic beliefs. What of your own practice? I assume you're self-taught.
Well, I'm learning how to integrate tech with a Cabal mate, but self-taught for the most part. Yeah, learning bits and pieces from people, and then just experimenting, and I guess talking to that old friend. Basically, guess it's hard to explain. I just tried to measure and look at the world around me and try to collect as much information as I can through all my senses, and try to conceptualize and truly feel what I'm doing. Then using different tools to try and focus that tangibility. Understand it.
Try to calculate this. You're trying to.
Perhaps you're asking what I do, how I do it.
Perhaps it would help if you gave one example. I mean, of something you've done, and how your methods, or how you go about it.
Usually, when I'm doing something simple, it's just meditation, breathing. I try to focus my mind on my breath, which then allows me to kind of focus on the details of my breath, and then I can reach this level to where I can feel the magic, if you want to put it that way.
I'm aware of different kinds of meditation. Is it the meditation in the sense of you are clearing your mind of thoughts, or are you meditating to become more mentally active and more aware, more focused on one thing?
I guess the best way to put it is to expand my comprehension,
Actually, those are to
to
mentally
kind of expand it
step,
inwardly and not outwardly, to kind of allow it to get more details.
to step back and see the bigger picture.
Yeah, best way to think about it.
Step, um,
Well,
or does a step upwards and look down on the situation?
no, it's more doing both at once.
Okay.
Space direction is kind of, well, once you see that, once you're able to tap into space itself, you realize that all space is one space, that you can shape it. Best way to think about it is I'm trying to touch that space so I can understand it and measure it in my own way. Then I can focus and build tools from that knowledge, since I have almost some stuff that I've read from a book, but literally build thoughts in my mind that match realities and use those to understand how to shape it. It's a bit hard to explain, but I guess it's just all about experience. Trying to soak in the thoughts of everything.
I can relate to meditation. I can relate to composing your thoughts and say seeing a problem from different angles. I mean, I often find that prayer a problem helps me reflect on it and see new angles.
I need to try. I mean, I've tried prayer sometimes. I think it's definitely something that's a part of trying to contact that which you don't understand, or that which comforts you, or that which you believe it is to be believed. And you get to ask a lot of deeper questions about yourself. That's I think what I find useful about prayer.
Hmm.
What do you use prayer for?
What do I use prayer for?
Maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it.
I use prayer to pray.
You pray to pray.
I'm not sure. As you said, maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it. Um,
I suppose.
I, I don't.
What do you like? Maybe.
I mean, I find it's healthy to spend some time each week in quiet contemplation, reflecting on all manner of things.
Yeah, it just sounds like something everybody needs.
Um, our modern lives are very busy and noisy. Well, modern
Yeah,
cities are very noisy. And how tranquil this bank is.
yep.
And
Just body needs just like the brain, just like the body. The brain needs a breather too sometimes.
and God, I mean, God is always available to us, but it's easier for us to hear Him when we stop and get our breath and sit in the quiet.
Makes sense.
And
Michelle will look at Danielle. If you ever want to chat or anything, my house isn't particularly busy, so she gives you a card. Give me a call.
Sure. Thanks. Doesn't sound like a bad idea. Seemed pretty cool.
Thanks. You too. Rupert, I'll be in touch with you.
yes,
Have a good one, Michelle.
You too. She will head off.
um,
So she'll wave at Michelle as she's leaving. Log her number somewhere. Probably put it in her bag. She'll look to Rupert and just say, "So, are you?" I guess I got caught up in answering the question that I forgot what the question was.
Uh, I was just curious about your own practice. But you say you're incorporating technology.
Yeah,
Um,
if I can use
but
tools that
and
can.
and you use you meditate to achieve a different perspective on things.
It's not so much to gain perspective, but to absorb the intimate knowledge that reality has right before you. Think of it like reality is a sponge of bits and pieces that can be understood
Yes.
on
Yes.
a subatomic level and on an energetic level.
Yes.
And
You mentioned yeah, all space is one. Is a philosophy I've
yep,
come across.
all space contains all information, all knowledge.
Yes, I've had lengthy discussions with the Kurzweil of the virtual adepts.
Oh yeah,
So yes, he taught me a little about some of their philosophy and their digital web.
digital web. What's
Uh,
that?
it's a virtual adept internet. It's I'm hardly the person to explain it, to be honest with you. Um, but
Maybe I'll.
it's supposed to be their version of the spirit world or their version of virtual reality. Um,
Huh. I guess that makes sense. She's like she seems to be like you can tell that she's kind of like she was looking at you throughout the conversation, but she's kind of like looking up and she's just trying. You can kind of tell her mind's like really with your mind sight, her mind is really trying to like stretch and build patterns in her mind, and you can see all the electricity in the brain just trying to work out, trying to conceptualize what you've told her.
um, I don't know how to say. I'm not sure I understand it well enough to properly explain it. I think I suppose one analogy might be if you think of the internet that the mundanes and us use as a two-dimensional plane. This is a third dimension, which I say they like to call themselves the elite, are able to access.
That sounds
Uh,
good.
it's
Sounds a
it,
bit
sou- it,
corny.
sou- it sounds to be a little much like the mundane internet, quite perilous. That someone could spend all their time in a place that isn't actually real. In the old days, I suppose people would be worried about being lost in fairyland. These days, they get lost in the internet.
Did you know that people had the same conception about books? That books would be that people would read books too much, that they wouldn't be spending as much time doing proper things.
Mm,
Something to think about. And that you wouldn't be able to properly remember things. Our minds change as our tools change. We there's always more if my rule of thumb is, if a lot of people are doing a thing, well, human beings don't always if a lot of people are liking a thing or getting into some sort of aspect of the world, then there's probably something to that thing. Maybe there's something special about this digital web that makes it.
Well, evidently, yeah, they have a whole tradition that does seem somewhat successful. Did you know win rate?
Yeah, I knew it, right?
I
Let's say,
I only had one good discussion with him, and that became an argument. But I still appreciate his sacrifice.
yeah, they saved their butts.
Mine included.
Yeah.
So,
What was the argument about?
oh, nothing. Well, nothing important in the grand scheme of things. Nothing too personal, to be honest with you. I think Stefanos was looking for a tradition, so there was some discussion of, oh, you're recruiting, and he was using the usual lines about hermetics being all about slaves to their masters and hierarchical and so on. And when I had to point out to him that no, I have voting rights. It's in the oath. I have and as you know, being a virtual adept, he appreciated he respects information. When I pointed out that I had 1,000 years of case law to back this up, um, but still, so nothing personal really. Just obviously, he clearly had certain misconceptions about the order, which do exist, and
Well, sometimes that's why it's good to,
yeah.
take secondhand information, but it's better to get the real deal right in front of you.
Well, yes, and well, I mean, this came from another conversation I had recently. I mean, at some level, okay, it's not the whole of our origin, but we're one of the forerunners of the order was the cult of Mercury in Rome. In some sense, we are remnants of the Roman Empire, like the Catholic Church over there is, and as you'd expect from someone from a group which is looking back to the days of Roman Greece, we value and respect the importance of democracy, which rather jars with people like Winrate who thought we were all about hierarchy. Yeah.
Well,
I put it to him. I'm actually quite proud that we had democracy in the 8th century. I'm not going to say it's perfect democracy by modern standards. I'm going to say it's got something got its own flaws, but compared to the other traditions, it's far more
I believe
open.
the adepts work off of democracy, but also kind of.
I heard it was more some
It's
sort of.
kind of the way Rachel explained it. I still have a lot to sort through, but maybe next time I'll ask her more about the digital web since.
I mean, I understood it was something like prestige, or or status derived from their achievements, or their capacity to achieve.
Sounds like a meritocracy.
Yes, I suppose so. With perhaps, I'm sure, some social politics to decide exactly what's worthy of the most merit.
Yeah. Well, if it's anything like online culture, it's basically who did the coolest stuff.
Yeah, that would sound about right. And to be fair, I'm sure there's elements of that in all traditions. Yeah.
Maybe the adepts are the most honest about it. Who did the cool thing?
If you go out there and fight, if you go out there and fight the good fight, there are many people who will respect you for that. Well, just as I respect Winrate for what he did.
And then everyone says, "Let's give him the pointy hat."
Except, of course, some people there are some people who decide exactly what counts as cool.
Yeah. So I guess the best thing to do is to see what everyone thinks is cool.
Well, I'm not sure everyone agrees.
Everyone has input on who's cool. But
Well,
then again, that can cause problems too.
well,
That's what school playgrounds are like.
well, 52% of people on that island just across the pond there thought leaving the EU was a cool idea.
Oh boy.
That lad now fall into civil unrest.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That whole situation's just messed up.
as I said, there are flaws in democracy. Um,
Uh-huh. Well, I think as people get more information in their hands and people have more knowledge in general at their fingertips and can more easily sort through it over time, I think maybe really the biggest problem with democracy is misinformation. Hopefully, more information, more better decision making.
yes, no, I mean, for democracy to work, it requires an educated populace. I
Yep.
mean, when the ancient Greeks had it their city states, you know, the well, firstly, it wasn't a really democracy by modern standards, was it? It was the wealthy, not slave men had the
Yeah.
vote, and they had a culture which respected both physical achievement and also educational achievement. They respected philosophers. Those men would have had a reasonable level of education, wit, and would have respected good oratory at least. Um,
Well,
and
more and
then
more people every
and
day are getting educated.
and then Rome had a republic, but Rome looked back to Greece and respected that. It was fashionable to have a possibly enslaved Greek philosopher teaching your children. Um,
Jeez. Well, at
so
least in some
yes,
ways it's getting worse.
democracy does require for democracy to work. It requires an educated electorate.
Pretty much.
Otherwise, well,
Who knows, maybe with more information, more people might awaken, and they can have the knowledge right next to them. Hope it doesn't hurt people.
do you think it would be a good thing if huge numbers of people were to awaken?
I think a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think in the short term it would really suck. In the long term, it might prove to be something that might help humanity evolve.
I don't know.
I think that those who are ready and those who, you know, manage to figure it out or attain that awareness, I think they probably got it for a reason. And if more people started to have that in droves, maybe, people, maybe, not to say that will work itself out, but really see like how they're manipulated, how they're being misinformed, how what they thought was a healthy belief might not have been the best. If more people are able to have access to knowledge just as a whole, and awakening definitely helps you attain knowledge. And overall, I think it would improve things.
Well, I think we've seen plenty of examples of people doing, prepared to go to extreme lengths for their cause. There's been enough terrorist groups in this world or on this island. Goodness knows,
Yeah,
goodness knows what would happen if they started having awakened members.
but I think they're more often than not. don't know, maybe, I traveled here and there around the world with my parents, and, you had on the news the people who are terrorists, the people who go around killing people. You hear all of that negative stuff. But then when you actually go around and walk in the world, 7 billion people, there's that. Most people are really all right, hardworking, trying to do their best to improve. Maybe they're not perfect. Maybe they're not perfectly healthy. Maybe they can make better decisions in their life, but overall, they're all right people. They're not these innately corrupt, you know, people. They're just people who are having a hard time. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the
I
world.
suppose
Maybe
I'm not. I don't disagree with you as such, but I suppose the question is that when you're comfortable, it's easy to be good, decent people. You know, no,
of course.
no revolution happens on a full belly.
Ain't that the truth?
It's only when people experience hardship or they're put in a difficult situation or they're exposed to temptation, perhaps, that you really find the nature of their character.
I
And
think
some
I
people,
I think that's half true. I think you get the one side that when they're in a level of hardship or hurt or a situation of suffering, but I think there's also something to say for the idea that when people are fed, when people talk, and when people are able to explore their experiences without the threat of death at every corner, that you also see more of that person's character as well. That it's not like that person is fake compared to the other person because they're not going through hardship. It's still them, it's still that person.
yes, no, I'd agree. Yes.
So I think that as people get more food, more stability, security, they get this world of abundance that may or may not happen. But as more and more people are not in poverty, more and more people every year are, have housing and shelter and the internet and electricity. Like for the first time 2 years ago, only 1 billion people were without electricity. 6 billion people have electricity now, which means they can get access to the internet, which means they can get access to all the information in the world, and you can get a whole world of new inventors, idealists, ways to help improve the situations and survive. But humanity that we know of that's been struggling is very different to the humanity we have today.
It can be. Again, I don't disagree with you. It can sometimes be disturbing how little it can take to make people act in ways which would normally be seen as quite evil. I mean, I hope we would agree that Germans are not inherently evil people. Generally, they're
No,
not really different to us. Really, they may have some slightly different temperament due to their culture, perhaps. But then, a few generations ago, their they their country, great many of them performed unspeakable evil acts and all aided and abetted in them.
yeah, I remember reading those studies.
Now, what now? Let's accept they were not. Let's agree they were not fundamentally flawed in their nature. They were not. The people driving the trains were not bad people inherently.
I mean, the first country the Nazis invaded was Germany, right?
I mean, yes, that's one way to look at it. You could try to pretend, oh no, it wasn't the Germans, it was the Nazis. But then the whole infrastructure of the country was still Germans.
No, that's not what I mean. What I'm trying to say I mean, that's the problem, right? But people were hoodwinked. They didn't have proper information in their hands. They couldn't see with their own eyes what Hitler may have been saying or doing. I think if people have information in their hands, true knowledge, I think more often people will make better decisions than not. And I think if they truly are able to think, and that's the global meme, the just
I, I might
think
suggest
hard.
I might suggest it's not just knowledge, but requires a level of critical thinking. The great paradox here is Hitler published in a book his views that were clearly publicly what he planned to do. He made no secret of it. Um, the politicians in the other countries were able to read it, as they could read exactly what it was. It's just the other politicians.
But comparing it with all sorts of other pieces of information. I'm talking
Yes.
about diverse.
Yeah.
If
But
if Hitler only released that book and no one had access to many other books, or people were able to more easily read and absorb information more readily and have a diverse amount of information from various different sources, is what I'm saying. Of
well,
course,
I mean, it's two element points here. Firstly, the reason the leaders of the other countries didn't believe it was because they assumed it was the same lies that they tell their population. Um,
and that's what I think that there's power about.
and the other reason why I think the Germans believed it was if you construct a narrative where you tell people that they're good and special, and the reason they lost the last war was not due to any failing, but they were betrayed by some other guys. People are very, very happy to believe that story because it makes them feel good.
Maybe we have to find a way to look. All I'm saying is, if people have more ability to talk to each other, ability to have information in their hands, the ability to learn from the mistakes of the past, that the new generation won't repeat, and tries not to repeat the same generation as the last, despite circular histories, or that's something that people think maybe on somewhere deep down that they can. I think at that point, whether people awaken or not doesn't matter. What matters more is that people just have that ability to discern. People have that diverse amount of knowledge, because the more people are aware of something, the better they can think about it, the better they can determine whether they want to follow down some path or not. And I think overall, even though you have that horrible case with World War II, the world still, even when that happened, still managed to improve and get better. In spite of that, rather than humanity toppling over the terror of committing the deaths of 100 million people, it psychologically still carried on and tried to make itself better. Still does that to this day. I think there'll be a day where, as humanity just keeps trying, the idea of everyone awakening will seem less and less like a bad idea, and more like, hey, it's happening.
No. If or when that day comes, I hope that we have the facilities to guide them.
Yeah. I guess we'll have a lot of.
Because if we don't, someone else will.
Eventually, maybe it'll be so massive that they'll just have to build their own communities. I mean, hey, there had to be the first major organization, right?
Perhaps. Or perhaps they don't have a order or the Fandi because they don't know any better.
Well, I guess mass awakenings in my mind would be like millions of people in, a few months. So I think the recruiting offices of all the traditions are going to, all the groups are going to be a little bit overwhelmed, and people will just probably form their own collectives and groups. Besides, this also implies the idea that every single person who awakens goes completely crazy weird. Maybe there's a process for it to happen naturally. over time.
I've known some people like Stephanos who've had extremely violent awakenings, which caused
Yeah, I've
a
heard
lot of
that too.
damage.
So I don't know. It'll probably, again, that's the thing. I'm not saying like this is going to be all good, all dandy. I already, I mentioned that it's probably going to have a lot of growing pains. But I think it's not something that's. I really think it might be something that's inevitable.
I wonder if when we start speaking of global topics like this, if we both take it a very, Western perspective, we're thinking of individuals awakening. That's because we celebrate the individual. I speak highly of democracy because I celebrate the individual. Yeah, there are, in the East, they much more value loyalty to the collective and the state or the party over the individual.
Yeah.
Or there are religions which deny individuality, which deny the ego is real. I mean, you suppose there was a mass awakening in China. I don't know what that would look like. Would they all end up in in camps being trained to become weapons of the Communist Party?
I don't know. Yeah, not the way I guess I'm coming at it is I'm not saying that this is something that might be something someone desperately wants, but the more I've thought about it, and the more I've seen people slowly kind of, in some ways, breaking what the establishment tells them and kind of trying to, whether it be wrong or otherwise, starting to think for themselves. I really feel like things are speeding up towards something.
I admire your optimism.
It's not optimism. That's not what I'm saying. It's just something. It's not optimism, pessimism. It's just something. Something's coming. Something big. I don't think at the end of all this we're gonna see ourselves the same way. Just a hunch. It's, I don't know. This universe is bigger than me. Maybe it does have a plan. I don't know.
Have you? I know you've been, say, awakened as an orphan, for want of a better word, for a few years. Have you had you say you have a cabal at least, though, so you have some people who to teach you whatever you're interested in.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, not sure, not a formal mentor as such, but peer to peer.
Pretty much peer to peer. I guess I have a bit of a mentor relationship with that other half of myself. My soul, I guess, is the best way to put it. But yeah, I have a cabal.
Would this be people I know?
Have you met Soul or Rachel or?
Doesn't ring any immediate bells.
No, I don't think you've met them. I can introduce you sometime.
What do they have a traditional craft?
They're a mixed bag. Some are just orphans. Some are private traditions. One of the virtual adepts there.
Oh, well, I'm sure he can explain the digital web to you better than I can.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning to ask her about. Actually, I gotta verify something out of character. I hope I might have made a boo boo.
On it.
But 1 second. Oh. Anyway, so she'll just say, yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Mm.
But yeah, there's Daniela's foreboding warning for today.
Mhm. Well, and on that note of forewarning, I suppose I should better be say get off to catch up with Michelle and actually get on with things I plan to do today. It's been really good to see you again. I'm glad you're well, and
I'm glad you're well too, Rupert.
this is been good to hey, talk these things over. I'm sure I'll see you around.
Sure. Hey, share of information, right?
Yep. Okay, thank you, Pleasant Play, and thank you, watchers and watching another episode of Darkness in Dublin, where mages sit around for hours and talk about idle philosophy,
Yeah.
because that's what being a mage is all about.